Hey guys, Christian Babcock here of The Hunter's Advantage. In today's video, we're gonna do a quick broadhead review. I'm gonna talk you through my experiences with these 4 broadheads that I have right here. These are some heads that I've used over the last couple years, and we have the Swhacker 261, the Rage Hypodermic, the Grim Reaper Whitetail Special, and last but not least, I have an NAP Thunderhead. Every one of these broadheads is 100 grains, so I feel like it's a pretty fair comparison between them. I'll talk through my experience with each one of the broadheads, what I like about it, what I dislike, and then I'll tell you kind of which one I think I'm going to be using in the fall of 2022 this season. So let's get into it. So I'll start with the broadhead that I have the most experience with, and that is the Swhacker 261. What I really like about this broadhead is it has an extremely thin ferrule, has almost like a chisel tip that you're used to seeing on Rage broadheads here. Just 2 blades with wing blades, and then it has obviously a rubber band that keeps the blades concealed before it hits the animal. And I have one of the broadheads without the rubber band, so I can show you sort of what it looks like here in flight. So the whole idea behind the Swhacker and the whole value proposition of the broadhead is that with these 2 wing blades that it has here, these catch on hide or the first ribs when you shoot into an animal. And the idea is when the blades open, they're cutting with brand new blades as opposed to a cut on contact broadhead like a Rage. They have to cut through the hide and the ribs before they can start cutting everything else, and at that point they're fairly dull. I've shot several animals with these, including this deer right over my right shoulder. Shot that one on public land. Shot my public land buck last year with this one. I shot a non-typical 8-point in Oklahoma this last season with this broadhead. Shot a doe last season. So I've shot 5+ deer with this broadhead, and I haven't had many problems apart from my own poor shot selection. One thing I do not like about a Swhacker is it's obviously an expandable and you have to get into the cavity for the blades to open. It's a question of if you'll get a pass through, not when. I shoot a pretty heavy arrow, so I don't really worry about pass throughs that much unless I'm hitting the shoulder. But you really want to be shooting something heavy so you can get a pass through with this broadhead. I've shot this in situations, in quartering 2 shots, and I do not recommend it for anything like that. So if you're going to be shooting a mechanical like the Schwacker, I'd recommend broadside or quartering away shots only on that one. And the last con I would talk to you about the Swhacker is a lot of these broadheads that I've used have been single use. So I shoot one animal, the blades dull quite a bit, or can even get some nicks in them. And another issue is sometimes they'll bend, so when you go to retract the blades back into the ferrule and put a new rubber band around it, they won't exactly open real easily. You kind of have to work them open, so that's just something to be mindful of. All right, the next broadhead that I'm going to be talking about is the Grim Reaper Whitetail Special. So what I like about the Whitetail Special is it has a massive cutting diameter. You open all 3 of these blades, I don't know if it's quite 2 inches, but it's pretty freaking close. Like the Swhacker, this Grim Reaper has a very skinny ferrule and a pretty beefy tip. It's not a chisel tip. It looks kind of like a single or double bevel tip here, but it's awesome. And the thing about the Grim Reaper is if I could get a guaranteed pass through every time on any deer that I shot, this would be my broadhead of choice because the cutting diameter and the devastation that you get when it passes through the animal is awesome. I shot a buck in Texas with this broadhead in 2020 in December and heart punched him. He ran 60 yards, looked like you were spraying blood out of a water hose, and he made it pretty much nowhere. I have seen this broadhead last season shot into a doe on a quartering away shot, and I don't know if it caught a rib or too much hide, but got about 6 inches of penetration. Arrow fell out. This is up from my buddy Hunter when he shot a doe and didn't recover the animal. The one thing I would worry about a broadhead like this is you need a lot of momentum to open the blades of this broadhead. Not only is it 2, it's a 3-blade design. So that's something to consider. And like we talked about earlier, if you're shooting a very, very heavy arrow setup and you're shooting it in ideal conditions, like broadside shots, mainly no quartering two shots, broadside or quartering away, and you don't catch a lot of hide or a rib, I think you're going to be okay. But a con of this broadhead is it takes a lot of kinetic energy to open all three of these blades, and that has been my experience shooting it as well. If you can get a pass through, you're going to be in great shape. Jake Gaylord shot a buck with this broadhead. He's in the hunter's advantage as well. He shot a buck with this broadhead last season, 25 yards, slightly quartering to, went right behind the shoulder, exited right in front of the other flank. The deer ran 60 yards and fell over. So this is a great broadhead. If you can get a pass through, if you're shooting it in ideal shot conditions and not being silly on your shot selection, I think you're going to be great with a Grim Reaper Whitetail Special. It's funny that I'm showing you guys all these broadheads because they're all freaking used. I don't know if you can tell, but they're all disgusting. They have blood and a bunch of other matter on them. All right, the third broadhead that I'm going to talk about is old reliable, the NAP Thunderhead. Basically all this broadhead is a normal chisel tip with a vented 3-blade design, and I call this broadhead old reliable. I've killed deer with this. I don't know if I have any kills on video with this broadhead, but this is one of the tried and true ones, right? You know Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong, and when you're shooting a mechanical broadhead, it seems like more often than not you're asking for something to go wrong. There's not a lot of things that can go wrong. I like that it does require minimal tuning in my experience. If you're shooting this out of a tuned bow and you're going to you adjust your pins to where this broadhead flies, you're not going to have any flight issues. And even though it's vented, it's not going to produce a lot of noise. And I like that about this broadhead. I watched my uncle shoot several deer with this on public land last season and had no problems with it at all. The con that I would say a NAP Thunderhead has is when you do get a pass through, the blood trails can kind of be weak in some areas. And what I mean by that is it's a little over an inch cut, and when you have that narrow of a cut, even though it punches a triangle shaped hole out of the animal, it can still be a sparse blood trail. The good thing is if you're getting a pass through, you're most likely going to recover the animal because this broadhead's going to do some damage. But what I dislike, like I said, is I feel like sometimes with fixed blades, the two things that could go wrong is a poor blood trail because they're not creating a very big cut, and two, the tuning and flying out of the bow. So if you're going to shoot a broadhead like this, make sure to tune it and make sure to sight in your bow with this specific broadhead, or if you're going to shoot any fixed blade, that's what I would recommend. I've killed animals with this in the past, and I've seen it work this last season, so it's a great broadhead. All right, let's go to number 4 and the last broadhead on our review stack, and that is the Rage Hypodermic. This is the old reliable of the expandable market, in my opinion. The Rage Hypodermic has been around for so long, and it's really hard to beat it in terms of its simplicity and track record. Obviously, I'm not going to try to blow through an animal's shoulder with a Rage Hypodermic, but man, if I get a pass through, these blades are so wicked sharp, and they create a devastating hole. I saw my buddy Jake Ayers shoot a doe with this hypodermic last season, and it was in the shoulder, probably only got 8 inches of penetration, but gosh, it looked like you were pouring water out of buckets when we were trailing this deer, because when these blades get in, they don't need to get in very far to do a lot of damage. Pros of this broadhead are the blades are extremely sharp. It's going to do a lot of damage, and it has a very nice sort of chiseled tip here. And gosh dang, these Rages, they fly so well. I've never put a Rage on an arrow and had to worry about, is this going to fly like my field tip? Every time I put a Rage on, I have utter confidence that when I shoot this arrow, if my bow's sighted in and tuned, it's going to go exactly where I expect and where I'm aiming. So those are the good things about the Rage. Bad things about the Rage Hypodermic is these broadheads are a little bit older designed. They have a collar around the end of the broadhead, and that is what stops the broadhead from deploying. And so what happens is when you shoot an animal, the front two pieces of this broadhead hook on the fur, it breaks the collar and opens up and flies like that. So the issue with this is these collars are really easy to break, and once you break it, you have to replace it, similar to the Swhacker with rubber band. They're one-shot use. So you gotta carry either an extra pack of collars or enough broadheads where you're not gonna have to worry about it. And this has been fixed with the Rage no collar. I believe it's the Trypan with a no collar has been fixed. So now you can actually, in those designs, just put the broadheads back in and they naturally will lock right there, so no collar needed. That fixed a lot of those issues. To talk about some of the animals that I've shot with a Rage Hypodermic, I've shot several does with this. This buck behind me over my left shoulder, my biggest buck I've ever killed, shot him with a Rage Hypodermic, and whew, it was devastating. Shot him in the lungs, a little bit high. He ran 50 yards, was spraying, and expired very quickly. So in the right situation, these broadheads are devastating. Wouldn't take them on a quartering shot. Obviously, I need a broadside or a quartering away shot to feel comfortable shooting these. But if you get a pass through, it's going to be devastating. They fly like a fuel point. They're a great head. Just like any expandable, I'm worried when I don't get a pass through. So I just walked you through the 4 broadheads that I've shot in the last few seasons. And honestly, guys, any of these heads are gonna be okay for you guys as long as you're practicing good shot selection, not taking hard quartering 2 shots, not shooting deer in the shoulders, focusing on having a heavy enough arrow for your setup. If you do all those things, I think you're gonna be good regardless of what broadhead you shoot. Don't let anyone tell you in the hunting industry, oh, you can't kill a deer with that broadhead, or that broadhead doesn't fly good enough to kill a deer. With a properly tuned bow, an adequate arrow, you can kill a deer with a sharp rock on the end of your arrow. So don't let anybody tell you none of these will work, or that one won't work for this reason, or that one won't work for that reason. That's just simply not true. But I do have a preference. Out of these 4 broadheads, the one that I will continue to use will be the Swhacker 261. And the reason that I'm going to keep using the Swhacker 261 is this broadhead is deadly accurate. When these 2 wing blades open up these fully sharp blades on the inside of the animal, I don't think there's anything that can stop this thing if you're getting a pass through. Obviously the pass through is always the goal, but if I am shooting a heavy arrow like I am, an Easton FMJ at 525 grains, I'm confident that with this expandable, if I have good shot placement and I get a pass through, there's no reason that an animal should be able to take a broadhead like this. We'd love to hear what you're shooting and why, if it's different from what we're using. You can kill a deer with any broadhead as long as you're accurate and you're choosing good shot selection, your bow is tuned, and you have an adequate arrow for your setup. You do those 4 things, you're gonna be able to kill a deer. If you guys like this kind of content from the channel, make sure to give us a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification because we have a lot of hunting videos coming your way. If you stuck around this long, you might as well go check out huntersadvantagemerch.com. We have some really cool hats and some shirts coming for you guys. We have such a cool community on YouTube, and we appreciate you guys rocking with us, watching the videos, subscribe and comment. Man, it just fires us up to make more videos. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate you all, and we'll catch you in the next one.